3, 2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It was a beautiful Tuesday evening. I was at the dinner with my wife and my dear friend Bill Cole from Cole Roofing, and the WNST text comes in right around 6 o'clock. Mike Mussina selected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And, of all the emotions involved with it, the first thing is I know I have some fun pictures of Mike and I when I had blonde hair. And I said, I'm going to put those up. And then I have the Van Halen pictures and the Bon Jovi pictures. And then I find the Van Halen picture. And there in the back of the Van Halen picture is one of my all-time favorite Orioles, who I am still friends with on Facebook, who we've gotten together and went to a baseball game during my 30-30 tour. It's been a few years since I've seen him. We only catch up maybe once a year or thereabouts. And there is Brad Pennington in the back. And Penny, I thought, you know what? This is going to give me a reason to try to find all of you. You are near and dear. David Segui's still in my phone. Some of the dearly departed. We lost Rick Down last week. Johnny Oates is no longer with us. Greg Biagini. We've lost some people right along the way. But it really, 25 years now, marks the time since you cut my ponytail at Hooters. I can still feel you yanking on it, probably because I saw the video of it lately, and I'm going to post that up. I love you, Brad Pennington, and, I'm 50 now. I know you're getting near there, Mussina. It must really mean something to you when you're sitting down there in Florida with your sandals on teaching kids baseball. That where were you when you found that Mike Mussina was a Hall of Famer, and how did it make you feel, man?
Hi, Nestor. Thanks for having me. I was actually in my baseball place, in my baseball facility, catching when I saw it flash on. We got tons of TVs, and I was like, oh, my God, he made it. And I actually stopped, and we went over and kind of watched because I had my high school kids going. It was pretty impressive and exciting to know that no one even seen him come up.
Well, let's go through it. Now, you're a kid from, Kentuckiana or wherever it is, you called home and played ball on a lot somewhere. Mussina, same kid, same age, sort of, kind of, right? Me, I'm a kid playing ball, and I, love baseball. My cousin's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, all that stuff. And we all love baseball, right? And I think to see him get this honor, and you played with a lot of great players. You were on a couple other stops. You played with Cal Ripken, for crying out loud, Brad, right? So we can talk about all that, but give me the Mussina journey from a pitching standpoint. I'm sure you had good conversations, awkward conversations. Moose didn't get along with everybody as well as he got along with me. Clearly, we got along pretty well. We were together, immortalized in a picture with Van Halen. So we'll always have that. But, give me some stories, Brad Pennington.
You know what? The story with Moose is incredible. And I look back and, you see all these things or you read them on the internet about how Moose did it. Moose was so much more cerebral than any other pitcher that I ever ran into. And, you said, well, maybe you didn't get along. I always got along with Moose. Did you go hang out with him other than concerts? Maybe not. But he was so smart. He was studying the game, Nestor, before people even knew to study the game. And I mean that with all due respect. It would be interesting to see how he would have probably won 30 games a year. And I don't take that, I'm not saying that lightly because I know how difficult it would be if he would have had the technology that these kids have today. He had charts. He knew what what hitters were doing before we did it. You know how it was. We just kind of went out and threw. There might be a pitcher's meeting the day before, when the team was coming in. But he already had all those charts or in his head or writing them down and all these notes.
Well, Cal had that too in regard to positioning players, right? Cal would, when you were on the mound, shade Eric Davis over. Whatever was going on, to some degree, Cal's father and that was the Oriole way. And you were sort of the last class of that remnant before Angelos wrecked the place, literally, right?
Absolutely. It was a totally different thing. But even then, even though we had those, and yes, Cal did it, and Cal knew where to go to every position when a guy was up. It didn't really work for me because, I didn't really throw the ball exactly where it was supposed to go all the time. But for somebody like Moose, he knew that Moose was going to hit an outside corner and knew the only place that guy could hit it might be up the middle. And so he'd already be shading. So they were more advanced than, they probably were the ones that started the trend of actually following what hitters did with all the technology we have now.
You still spend your life in baseball. So Brad Pennington is here. If you remember him, tall left-hander, and played with Mike. You went on another journey and played in some other places here. The difference in your stuff and Mussina's stuff and any of the pitchers of your era, some who were Hall of Famers and some like you that are footnotes in baseball and had a good time, but you've stayed with the game and made the game your life. You're still, I saw you on fields in Spain. I didn't even know they played baseball in Spain, Brad, but I know you were over there this year. And you're down in Florida where the sun's shining and all that. And you're a Midwestern kid, Southern Midwestern kid that's made your life in Florida now and your family. And I see your daughter, all this stuff about your life. But baseball is still your life. Can you express to a guy like me, or even my father who died in 1992, right around the time that I met you, that if my father were to come back now and see what baseball is, from how to teach it, how to play it, and what you see, for the first thing out of your mouth is, man, if Mussina had analytics, he would have been otherworldly. If Greg Maddux, who could count cards, had this sort of technique, he would have been otherworldly. That some of these kids, this is what the game has become, and this is how they're going to make their living in Major League Baseball. It's by being the nerd who understands analytics and uses them to their advantage. I just read Astro Ball, Brad. I'm kind of blown away by these nerds that are running the Orioles now and what they did in Houston and how they took a kid like you from Indiana that could throw the ball 102 miles an hour and taught you how it would be to your advantage to pay attention to the Harvard nerds and what they're bringing you about tendencies.
That's 100% correct, Nestor, and I'm going to tell you, that's the most amazing change that I've ever seen in this game. At first I think baseball or the old traditional players were very resistant to it. In fact, some of them still are. But it's amazing to see the way that they've revolutionized this game. Most of them never even played baseball or maybe Little League or something, but they know how the game works, the analytics work, and take a kid. I would have loved to have somebody teach me something along the way when I was younger. By
the way, Brad, that's all my dad did. My dad loved baseball so much, and my dad considered himself, and, my dad coached Little League and umpire, you know what I mean? But my dad loved kids. My dad loved baseball. My dad loved playing by the rules. My guy was always a fair and square guy. This is what my dad taught me, but my dad taught me, and dude, I'm 50 years old. You cut my hair 25 years ago, right? Like, this is all I've ever done. It's all I've ever loved, and it's probably because, I've done a little Tony Robbins work as well. I sought my father's love, and part of that was he loved baseball and loved teaching me baseball. My father got the little Viewmasters, the little GAF Viewmasters, with Rod Carew teaching hitting, Lou Brock teaching stealing. I'd have to look up what those damn things were called, but it was like little fake movies that you watched in this little space-age thing that's in Steve Geppe's museum somewhere that my dad tried teaching. My dad bought me for Christmas The Science of Hitting by Ted Williams. That's who my dad was. I can't imagine how much my dad would have loved all this stuff, how much he would have thought of Sig Mejdal,
Absolutely. And it's amazing. And you actually see it coming through this game today. Even as hard as I threw, everybody throws that hard now because they've been able to take the technology and where you're getting the power and develop it. And it wasn't the baseball community that done it, or we would have been doing it 40 years ago. It was the scientists or like you said, the Harvard and Yale guys that were studying it and being able to put it all in. And relating it back to Moose, not taking one thing away because you can't take anything away from his Hall of Fame career, but just imagine what he would have been with that kind of stuff.
Brad Pennington here, former Oriole, and still. Tell me why you love baseball, Brad. I want to ask you that because, and look, I don't want to get cynical because I'm not a cynical guy, but with baseball and with the Mussina thing on Tuesday night, I'm with my wife, and my first thought is, well, he deserves it. Let's start with that. At the top line, it's Angelo screwed me out of the clubhouse, and I'm a guy who would have had a ballot by now, right? Like, I deserve a ballot. I've earned a ballot. I don't have a ballot, but if I had a ballot, Mike Mussina would be on it. And Kurt Schilling, who I completely disagree with politically and, roping journalists and all of this nonsense, I would vote for him because he deserves. I would not vote for Barry Bonds. I would not vote for Roger. I would not vote for the steroid guys because I was in those locker rooms and I didn't like being lied to, and I didn't like any part. I don't like the guys that are still associated with it because I'm a fair and square guy, and I saw a lot of guys get cheated out of their careers because of this, and I saw the way the union works. So I've been at this from the beginning, reading Lords of the Realm when they were trying to screw you, and you're walking picket lines at 94, Brad. So I go back with this, but the Hall of Fame thing, the minute it's Mussina, I feel like, man, Van Halen and my buddy Penny and drinking and girls and fun and road trips and all the Cito Gaston and all the All-Star Game, all that stuff we experienced together at Hooters and balls and friendships, and you and me and Ben McDonald eating Japanese teppanyaki in Toronto together and, all these memories of us being kids and having a great time. And then I go to the internet and I put the pictures up of Moose and I at the All-Star Game in 98 and whatever, and the first thing the fans want to know, Orioles hat or Yankees hat. And Brad, you saw that on my Facebook, and I thought, I don't know, probably Yankee. I'm thinking probably, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like the Yankees fan think he's a Yankee. It wouldn't be any benefit for him to be an Oriole. Maybe he's a blank hat or whatever. And then I go through immediately, dude. The trigger is, how the F did he ever wind up with the Yank? Oh, and then we lost for 12 more. Oh, and then I did free the, and then they took my, well, now we have to ask whether he's a Yankee or an Oriole. And you go down to cynicism, and then you go down to Clemens and Bonds and steroids and all. And it's kind of there's a darkness about it, dude. And you're out doing baseball, loving baseball, still loving baseball, making your living on baseball, being positive with kids about baseball. And I'm sitting here with 115 losses on a cold winter's day, and we're trying to figure out whether the last Oriole is going to actually wear a Yankee hat. Because there aren't any more Orioles in the pipeline. So it's different here, bro, than it was 25 years ago where you were downtown and a part of this energy of 3.6 million people. You were an Oriole when being an Oriole was something, bro. You know what I mean? Really.
Oh, my God. That's the one thing, like when I watch them on TV. I know it's a cliche that's used, but we literally didn't know what color the seats were. They were always filled, standing room only. And to watch a game that is empty there, it's kind of mind-blowing to me that he has such a fan base and such an unbelievable stadium still to this day.
But Mussina is an anchor to that, brother. Mussina is he is the coldest, darkest reminder of what the F went wrong with the baseball team, our town, the fan base, the hotels, the vendors, the restaurant, everything about the commerce of our city has changed with the demise of the baseball team. And Mussina really was... It's up there, not with the Mayflower vans, but as far as a civic tragedy that this guy's going to the Hall of Fame and was given away like that, and the franchise never really recovered from that. Ripken left the same year, the whole deal. 20 years, 19 years later, 18 years later, we look back now and say, what the hell happened? And Moose, sadly, is a part of that, and I wear it every day, and I don't know how to paint the sky rainbow shades of orange and black. It's not there, man.
Right. Well, Nestor, let me point this out that you probably haven't even thought about or brought up. But go to the 94 team when the Orioles actually went out and did somewhat of the right things at the beginning of Los Angeles's, whatever you want to call it, whatever has happened up there. We had basically 5 Hall of Famers on that team. Would you have ever imagined that? Lee Smith's going in. Harold Baines is on the team.
Wow.
Mussina just got in. Cal Ripken's in. And even though you're going to say they're not on steroids, Rafael Palmeiro's a Hall of Famer too. He should be. If you took out the PEDs, he's a Hall of Famer.
Okay, I don't disagree. And then, on the backside of that came the Alomars and the Keys and the, yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable. And just to see it get wiped out in a relatively short period of time. They've been wiped out for a while. I know they had a couple of runs, but they've been wiped out for a while now. And so, you never hear that. But 5 Hall of Famers on that team, or 4 real ones.
Brad Pennington here talking. Why do you love baseball? I guess that's where you go out and do this every day, and if baseball is ever going to be baseball again, somebody's going to need to really love baseball around here. You know what I mean? Really Wild Bill it all up and Cal Ripken it all up and love it all up and sell it all up and package it all up and. You have to love baseball, right? And you love it still to this day, every day of your life. It's a major part of your life. What do you love about it?
Let me be honest with you, and I'm not trying to pass words or to give, undue praise, but I actually was very fortunate to come up as an Oriole. Now, granted, I always loved baseball before that and grew up as a kid, but once again, I still played basketball too, but baseball was my first love. fell asleep listening to Marty Brenneman and Joe Nuxall at night listening to the Reds. That was just in my blood. But fortunately, the Orioles, and I'm not just saying it, they actually taught me to love the game. And I was very fortunate when I first got up. The Cal kind of took a liking to me. I hung around with Sutcliffe. They passed along knowledge that you weren't going to get everywhere. That's the one thing. These kids have talent and technology and all these things, but I don't know if they actually love the game the way, and I don't want to mince words on it, but the way that Cal and them had a joy to teach and to pass along, and I think I just kind of got it, and I like to pass along that information to these kids today because they might never get it. They might go to the big leagues and play 20 years, but do they hear the things that might not get passed along? And I think that's why I love it and love teaching and helping the kids as they begin their journey throughout life.
Do you have a kid in the big leagues right now that you know or work with who you work at the gym or throw? Who are a couple? Give me a couple guys in the game or people in the pipeline of the game that keeps you. Hey, for me, I'm going to the Super Bowl next week, right? I'll be broadcasting from Radio Row. You'll see it. All the celebrities around me and all that. And my wife's coming down, and we're going to drink and booze and have fun and see friends and do, Super Bowl stuff. And it's going to be fun it's my favorite week of the year, all of that, right? And then the game's going to start. And, I'm going to be rooting for the Rams because John Fossil's their special teams. He's my friend. You know what I mean? And I would root, if the Patriots win, I will go give Albert McClellan, who hung around Baltimore forever, and he's on the special. I will go give him a hug because he's always been a great guy to me. And I feel that way, and I think there's a link to when you have a dog in the hunt, when you have people, but you've worked with kids since all this time. I mean, and you're in South Florida, you've seen what kids like you look like when they come along, big strapping, 6'8", and can throw 100 miles an hour. You see that a lot, right?
I have some kids. I'm relatively new to the Florida line, so my pipeline's just growing, but I still, at this point, from my North Carolina days, I had Tim Fedorovich, who was a catcher with the Astros, I believe, a little bit last year, played among a bunch of teams, the Dodgers and Padres. Brett Eidner, who was with the Royals, I started working with him when he was 14, watching his career come up. Now they're making him a pitcher, throwing 98, 99 miles an hour, but he was an outfielder with the Royals, A's, and Dodgers. So I have some people in there. Matt Mangini. There were some few that came in and went out of the game that I started working with at a younger age. But at this point right now, it's Eidner and Fedorovich signed somewhere that are my two close guys that I kind of stay in touch with and watch.
Brad Pennington here, talking all things Mike Mussina and love of baseball and Cooperstown and all of that. Do you have the math? Do you know how many Hall of Famers you played with? You gave me 5 from the '94 team, but is that on your wall? How many guys you played with?
Oh my God, it's not, but it could be because every year. I mean, I've had Barry Larkin in there. Technically, I was with the Yankees, at least in spring training, so Mariano falls in there. He's that old Yankee run of him.
What do you want to say about Mariano? Because he fulfilled everything, and not to be mean, that you didn't, right? I mean, we all grew up, every guy that threw a baseball wanted to be whatever Mariano Rivera looked like this week. And Luke and I talked about this, the unanimous and all that. Long overdue and all of that. But here is the Cal Ripken of relief pitchers, right? Literally, right? And Hispanic and lived this clean life and through 3 different eras, really, of Yankee baseball, dating back to you. I mean, that's how far back it goes, right?
Absolutely. And what he did to the game was revolutionize the game. And, and a lot of the older pitchers, I heard a statistic last night, which I'm sure you probably already addressed. A lot of the new guys or older guys are they were one-inning guys. He wasn't a one-inning guy. He actually pitched more innings pitched than games most of the time. So he would come in, and in the playoffs, he was just an epitome of what you should be. And so that was an impressive thing. 100% is crazy. I never thought anybody would ever get that. So at least that barrier is finally broken, and we can move on with that.
Well, we've pissed on the designated hitter from the beginning of time, right? But I would say for you, the matchup of you against Terrell Baines was a win for you, but he hit left-handers as well as he had right-handers.
No, it wasn't a match for me. A funny story, Harold Tucker, you remember, was right to my right in Baltimore. And you know how he stood so far off the plate? And I was like, Harold, there's no way you're ever hitting my fastball if I ever face you. He was like, we'll see, kid. He was a quiet guy. Well, the very first time I come back in with Boston, I'm facing him. I throw a fastball away, knowing he ain't going to hit it, and he doubles off the wall in Camden Yards. He got to second base. I tipped my hat and said, okay, you can hit. That was it. I know the person no way could do it, but the man could hit.
Well, you know what? The hardest part for a guy like you is you weren't a Hall of Famer. So Hall of Famers, you had bad experiences with Hall of Famers. That's why they were Hall of Famers, right? I mean, literally, right? Brad Pennington here.
A couple of them.
Well, you know, but separating all of that, I guess, all these years later, and bringing it full circle back to Mussina, and you know, Edgar Martinez getting in, and what made these guys special. That really is, I guess, the great delineator when you look back and say, man, you know, those guys did it at a level that all the rest of it, every Brad Pennington that ever came through baseball tried to do it at. And that's why the Hill is still important. And to me, bro, that's one of the reasons why to respect you and honor you and every Rex Hudler and every Jack Voigt and every guy I ever met would be to not vote Barry Bonds into the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like that would feel to be my responsibility to some degree, man, you know?
Right. I agree with you. And just like I said, it's everybody along the way. You know, everybody made the game, and that's what the fun part. The setback, and I don't even know the number of people when you brought up the number of Hall of Famers, but it's probably more than 8 or 9 of all the teams that I was on, and even more than that, like I said, if you consider the Yankee people. But it's amazing to look at the little integral parts that made all of that along the way. And then you look back at the PEDs, and to be honest with you, Nestor, and I've never hid this from you when we've talked about it before. I think we spoke about it at the ballpark one day. At the time, I never thought one thing about it. I'm just going to be honest with you. But then when you look back and you see that little second baseman who I'm not going to mention his name that doubles off the wall, and you're like, there's no way he could have hit that without that help. But you know that later on he got caught. Those are the little things that I understand why you want to keep those guys out of the game.
Yeah, you were part of that as well. Hey, man, love you, appreciate you. The video of you cutting my hair at Hooters in 1994 is coming on my Facebook and on Twitter very, very soon, the minute I get my internet back. Brad, love you, man. We'll catch up in Florida. Keep up the great work. And you know, Mussina getting in gives me a reason to call a guy like you. I'm glad you visited. It was a great visit with you, man.
I appreciate you. Call me anytime, Mr. Thanks.
Brad Pennington.
Stay warm.
Oh, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. From Florida. There he goes. Stay well. I'll be in Atlanta next week in a dome somewhere. BuyAToyota.com. Audio Vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking.